Now, a lot of information which computers use, including some of what you're going to use, a lot of information is stored in the form of text. These texts can be numbers or they can be words, but most of the information which we use with computers is in the form of text. There's some other information which is stored in the form of music, or some other information which is stored in the form of videos. That is also data, okay? Because you've got all these video cameras recording things, you've got cameras getting pictures, that is all data. But most of the information which we have in the world is in the form of text. Are we clear? And some of the information you're going to use in this course, if we give you a piece of information, it will be in the form of text. So it is very, very important that you have the ability to actually look at this text, which means that means you open a text file, then you read what's in the text file. Then if you need to add information to that text file, you add it. If you need to create a new text file, you want to start from scratch, you learn how to do that. And sometimes maybe you no longer need any use for a text file, so you have to delete it. So there are a couple of things you can do with the text, with the file. You can open it, you can read it, you can update the file, you can delete it, or you can create a new file. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah, sometimes you create files with your when you're typing a Word document, but a Word document is not a text file. Yes, you type some text there, but it's not a text file. It's something which is more advanced. What we are looking at here is something which is just plain texts. Okay, so our objectives by the end of this lecture, we want you to learn how to do a couple of things. We want you to learn how to open a text file in Python. So we want you to learn how to open a text file. We want you to learn how to close a file. Because when you open a file, it's necessary that at some point you close it. I'm sure you know how to open a Word document. You know how to close a Word document. Okay? But how do we do something similar with a text file with Python? So how do you open a text file? How do you close a text file? You will also learn how to read everything in a file, in a text file. The thing we're interested in here are text files. You will learn how to read a text file, the entire text file at once. Okay? You also learn how to read the text file in bits. Then you also learn how to read a text file line by line. So if you want to read one line at a time, how do you do that? Then if you want to read multiple lines at a time, how do you do that? Then you're also going to learn how to create a new text file. Then you also learn how to write to an existing text file. That means when you're adding things to an existing text file, it means that you're either updating things or you're removing everything which is there and you're starting afresh. Okay? Then you also learn how to create a special text file which is called a CSV. That is a comma separated file, a separated value file. So this is a text file in which you have got information which is stored, which is separated by commas. So we'll see how to do that. Then we also learn how to create a CSV file from a list. Then we're also going to see how to read the position where you are in a file. At what position are you at? Are you in a file? Are you at the beginning of the file? Are you at the end of the file? Are you in the middle? Or maybe you've covered 75%. We're going to see how to do that. Are we clear? So these are some of the objectives which we have. These are common operations which you do with files. You open a file, you close a file, you read the file, you can create a file, you can update a file, and you can also find out where you are in the file. Are you at the beginning, or are you halfway, or are you at the end of the file? Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, Python as a language, okay, the Python language out of the box That's a good thing with Python. Out of the box, it gives you some basic tools you can use to work with the file. Okay, it gives you some functions and some methods. We have seen what a function does. A functions and methods do specific things. Okay, so in the case of a function, the Python programming language gives you a function you can use to open a file. Once you have opened that file, it gives you other functions in the form of methods which you can use to read the file, to close the file, to write to the file, and to do all sorts of things which you want to do. Okay, so when you open a file, what's going to happen is that something called a file object is going to be created. This is going to be created. So when you open a file using a function called open, that process of opening a file using a function called open is going to create this file object. So going forward, once this file object has been created, you are going to manipulate the file itself using this file object. Are we clear? So there's a function you're going to use. You're going to use functions and you're going to use methods. For you to use functions and methods, you need to create an object which represents that file, called the file object. All this thing happens automatically. Of course, you need to do a bit of things, but the file object itself is going to be created as a result of you trying to open a particular file. Okay, so the first thing to do when you're trying to work with a file is, before you do any reading, before you write it, before you close it, before you add anything, update it, the first thing you need to do is you need to open it. Are we clear? That's the first thing you need to do with the file. You need to open that file. And Python gives you a built-in method to use for opening a file. And that is what's known as the open function. So in this open function, what you are going to do is you're going to give in the parentheses of this open function, because it's a function, open, the name of the function is open, and these are parentheses, these two parentheses. Inside these parentheses, you are going to tell Python the name of the file you want to open and also the purpose for which you are opening the file. Are we clear? When you open your Word document, I don't know whether you open something, because you don't tell the Microsoft Word, say, I'm opening this document ahead of time so that I read it, or I'm opening for typing. But in this case, when you open a particular file, you need to tell Python the name of the file you want to open. You also need to tell Python the purpose for which the file is being opened. Are you opening it for reading? Are you opening it so that you can write to it? Are you opening it so that you can add things? Or are you is that clear? So you need to provide the name of the file. You also need to provide the purpose for which the file is being opened. Okay? And that process basically goes like this. So you say open, then inside here, the name of the file, then later on, the mode. The mode is the purpose for which the file is being opened. Once this function runs, then you put an equal sign, then the file object, the name of the file object you're going to use. So this is a variable which you're going to use to represent that particular file. This file name here, this file name is the name of the file you are going to open as a string. When you say a string, it means that this is text which is in commas, quotation marks. Okay? This name of a file, sometimes if your file is in the same location as your notebook or your Python program, then you just say the name of the file. Sometimes the file you want to open can be in a folder. So if your file is in a folder somewhere, then you also have to include the name of the folder in which that file is in, then after that, the name of the file you want to open. Are we clear? So we're going to see how this works. Then after that, you can also include the mode, the purpose for which the file is being opened. This mode is in square brackets because it is optional. Optional means that you can get away with just saying open file name. When you just say open file name without stating the purpose for which the file is being opened, Python is going to assume that you are opening the file for reading purposes. Is that clear? If you do not state the mode or the purpose for which you're opening the file, Python will make an assumption that you're trying to open this file because you're trying to read it. Okay? But if you're not trying to read the file, but you're trying to maybe add something, maybe you're trying to read and add some stuff, you need to specify. Say, I'm trying to open this file so that I can read it and also so that I can write to it. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So with a statement like this, file object, then open, the name of the file, then mode, we can open a file. When you do this, this automatically creates an object which is going to be stored in this variable this side. Then after that, we are going to manipulate the file using this file object. Okay. Now you can open the file for different purposes. For example, how do you specify that you want to read the file? You only want to read the file. If you want to open the file for only reading, then you say mode equals to arrow. Are we clear? You give the mode, you give this mode a value of arrow. Say mode equals to arrow. If that's what you want to do. If you want to read the file only. If you want to read and write the file. If you want to open the file for reading, you read what's in the file. Then after that, you want to write. Now writing means something else. When you're writing to a file, it means that if that file had things in it, those things are going to be removed, then the new things you're trying to write are going to be written in that file. Are we clear? That's what it means.
Yes.
When you're reading a file, Python is going to show you what's in the file. When you are writing to a file, Python is going to delete everything which is in that file, then it's going to add whatever it is you are trying to write. So if you want to read the file and write, then you're going to give mode this arrow plus. Arrow is for reading, then the plus is for writing. If you want to open a file for reading only, for writing only, you only want to write. Okay? You only want to write. Then you're going to open a file with this W. That is for writing. If you want to open a file for writing and reading, then you're going to open the file for this purpose, W plus. If you want to add things to a file at the end of the file, okay, without deleting anything from the file, you want to add stuff to a file at the end. You want to start at the end of the file. So whatever it is stays in the file, but when you start writing, you want to add things at the end. That process is called appending. So if you are opening a file with the view of adding stuff at the end of the file, then the mode is supposed to be A, append. If you want to append and read, okay? If you want to append and read, then the mode is going to be A plus. Are we clear? I am omitting this other one where there is B, because that's binary. It means you can't see the text. The text itself, you can't open it as a text file. So it defeats the purpose for this thing here. Okay. Then the file object, which is when you open a file, we said an object called something called a file object is created. Okay. This has got properties. For example, this file object is going to hold information about the name of the file you have opened. So you can access that as file object.name. So that's going to give you the name of the file you have opened. Then file object.mode is going to give you the purpose for which the file has been opened. Then file object.closed is going to give you the result if the file has been closed or is still open. Are we clear? You can get information about the name of the file. You can get information about the purpose for which the file has been opened. You can also check if the file is opened or closed. Is that clear?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay. Then, next, if you want to close the file, then you say file object dot close, like that. There's a method you use for closing a file, the close method. So this one is going to make sure everything, everything is saved properly and the file is closed properly so that it doesn't get corrupted. Okay. So on my computer, I hope you can see this. This is on my computer. This is where I keep stuff about the course. Here. This is where I have the, what's this? The notebook I'm running. Then there is this text file, blacksheep.txt. Then the notebook I'm running itself should be somewhere down here. No. Where is it? That's something worth it. What exceptions? Which one is this? I think it's this or something. Where is that? Yeah, but they're in the same place. Can I find it? Repetition. So that should be 12. Oh, here it is. So this is the notebook I'm running. PHY 3032 chapter 12a, handling text files in Python 3. So this is a notebook I've opened, the one we've just been looking at. So you can see the notebook and the file I want to open, this one, blacksheep.txt, they are in the same location. They're in the same folder, which is this Jupyter notebook. So sometimes you can run a computer program, a Python program, and the program itself and the file it's trying to open, they are in the same folder. Are we clear? Other times, that's not the case. The file you might be trying to open might not be located in the same folder as the file you're trying to open. So in this case, our file is here. It says Black Sheep. We can try to open it with the text editor so that we can see. Yeah, opening. So here it is. This is a necessary song about this Black Sheep thing, but there's some text there, and we don't have to struggle very much about complicated data. I just picked a text which is very, very simple. So when we practice with this text, we open it, we close it, so that we, at the end of the day, we achieve the purpose for which we want to do, because we want to see how to do things with Python. So this is the text file we want to open, this blacksheep.txt. So this file exists. So the name of this file, blacksheep.txt, which is this one, blacksheep.txt, that's the name of the file. I create a variable called file name, which is going to hold this name, blacksheep.txt. Names of files are stored. We keep this information about the name of a file as a string. So it's, as you can see, that's why it is in quotation marks and it's red. So blacksheep.txt, this is a string, and we keep it in this variable file name like that, because the texts blacksheep.txt and our program are in the same folder. We can just say open, then file name, then after that we are not saying the purpose for which. If we don't say the purpose for which a file is being opened, then Python is going to assume that we are trying to open the file for the purpose of reading. So this bit is going to open the file, then it's going to create an object which is going to be stored in this file object. After that, we will start manipulating this file blacksheep.txt using this file object. So it's very easy to create a file object. You just say open, then in the open function here, in the parentheses, you give the name of the file. The name of the file you're trying to open is stored in this variable file name. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes. So we run that. Yeah. So that's what you're going to be doing. You run that. Now that we have run this second line, we want to see what is the name of the file we have opened, if this file object now actually has information about the file. So we say the name of the file, we're going to get it as filename.name. That is without any parentheses, because this is information about the file. It's called an attribute. So when you do that, file object.name, we get the name of the file as blacksheep.txt. So a connection has been created between this file object and our text file blacksheep.txt. So whenever we manipulate this file object, what we are actually manipulating is the actual file itself. Are we clear?
Yes.
Next, we want to check the purpose for which the file has been opened. Has it been opened for reading purposes? Has it been opened for writing, or has it been opened for appending? So we say file object.mod. When you run that, it tells us error. So the file has been opened for reading. That is the assumption which is made if you don't specifically tell Python the purpose for which you're opening a text file. Okay? Then of course, are there any other things associated with this file object? Are there methods? Are there functions associated with this? And we know that in the case of a module, if we do this, if you remember dir, then the name of the module is going to give us the functions associated with that module. If you do it with an object, it's going to give you the methods associated with that particular object. So in this case, we have created something called a file object. Are there any methods associated which work with this? So we print this. When we print this, we find, yeah, a bunch of things. A bunch of things are associated with this particular file object. For example, here, this one. This is what you use for closing the file. This is what you use to check if the file has been closed. This mod, we have just used it here. We've just used that. Then the other one is the name of the file. This name of the file. We have just used this here. The other thing is new lines. If you want to add new lines, if you want to read from the file, if you want to read lines, one line, if you want to read many lines, if you want to seek, you're looking for the position, then after you find the position, you want to tell what the position is, if you want to write to a file. So there's a bunch of things you can actually do with a text file once you've opened it, as you can see from here. So it's only up to you. If you just have to choose what it is you want to do. Do you want to continue? What is it you want to do? So in our case, one of the things we want to do is we want to close the file. We want to use this. This is a function. So we say file object dot close. That's how you close your file. Are we clear? We have just shown how to open a file. The first thing you do is you create a variable, file name, in which you store the name of the file you want to open. Then next, you give this file name to the open function. Then this open function is going to open this file name. Then in the process, it's going to create an object which you store in this file object. After that, then you can check if this file object has actually been created by checking for the name of the file. If the correct file has been opened, then you can also check for the mode of the file. Then you can also check other things, what other functions or methods you have got access to. Then you can close the file. If you want to close a file, then you just say file object dot close. You're using this method. Is that clear?
Very clear.
Yeah. So it's that bit.
Now I wanted to ask on this one, which is saying write through, and then there is write, then write through. What's the difference?
We'll come back to whatever it is. We're not going to look at everything. We're just going to look at what we need.
Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to look at what we need. Okay? So that's the first part. How to open a file, how to check the name of the file, how to check the purpose for which the file has been opened, then how to close the file. Okay. Now, next, you can also actually, because you have closed the file, so you always have to remember when you open a file, you have to close it at the end. Is that clear? When
Yes.
you open a file, you have to close at the end. Next, we
Yes.
open the same file. Okay, we open the same file, but this time around, we want to specify the purpose for which we are opening the file. Are we clear? We open the same file, but this time around, we want to specify the purpose for which we're opening the file. Let me say, we can actually do this. We can actually be more specific. The name of the file you want to open. Here, we say file. That's the name of the file you want to open. File name. Then also the purpose for which you're opening the file. Why are you opening the file? Mode. You want to open the file for reading. You can be more specific. What is the file you want to open? So the name of the file is opened in file name like this, stored in file name like that. So you're being more specific. What's the file you want to open? File name. What is the purpose for which you're opening the file? Reading, like that. Are we clear? This is better. You have to be explicit so that everybody knows what's going on. Okay? So we run that. So we open our file again. Then we check if our file has been opened successfully. There it is, file name.name. That's blacksheep.txt. Then the purpose for which the file has been opened, the mode. We've opened the file for reading, and we close the file. There. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So we have seen how to open a file. Once you open a file, after you open the file, before you close it, we have just done a couple of things. You have just checked the name of the file and the purpose for which the file has been opened for reading. Then after that, we closed it. We didn't do any reading, we didn't do any writing, but that's basically what you want to do. When you open a file, you want to see what's in the file. So you want to read. Okay? Maybe you want to read everything at once, or you want to read stuff one line at a time, or you want to read a handful of lines, or you want to write things to that particular file. And that's what you're going to look at next. How do you do this? Okay, so reading from and writing to text files. Again, our focus is only on text files because these are the kind of files we are going to meet in our course. Okay, reading from a text file. So when it comes to reading from a text file, you can choose to read the text file, the whole thing at once. No matter how big the file is, you can read it at once. The computer is going to try to do as much as it can to show you all the text file at once. How do you do that? you use a method called read. This method is associated with the file object which has been created. When you open a file, there is read here. So you use this read, and we're going to see how that is done. So you say file object, then read. So here again, we open file, the same black sheep, then the mode for which we're opening it, we are opening it for reading. So open file, the file name, then the mode for which you're opening it, you're opening for reading. So this is going to try to open the blacksheep.txt for the purpose of reading. So in trying to open this thing, it's going to create an object which we are going to store as file objects. So that bit happens. Then we want to see what is in this file. We want to see what is in this file. So we say file object dot read. Okay, file object dot read. This is what we get. We get this. From there all the way up to there. That is what's there. So there's a bunch of things which are here. There is Baba up to here, then there is this, then there is all these things, funny things looking there. So it doesn't look quite presentable. Okay, but if you decide not to do something else, if you decide to print this, if you decide to make a print, which is why we're going to be printing going forward, if you print this, say you print this thing or this file object dot read, you give it to the print function, which is what we have done here, then you run it. Okay, oh, it has already been read, so I think let me close, let me reopen it. So this bit, let me remove that. So let me open, then you give it to the print function like that. This is what we get. So we're saying you get black sheep, have you any wool? This is a song, yes sir, yes sir, 3 bags full, one for the master, one for the den, one for the old man who lives down the lane, like that. So basically this is a song which necessarily kids sing. As you can see, there is text there. Okay, what we have done here is we have read everything in this file up to the end. So when you use the read method, it tries to read everything in your file. Are we clear?
Yes. So does it have any provision for the read aloud, where it can read the information aloud?
Reading for you aloud? No, it won't. Like producing a sound?
Yes.
No. Some other things can do that, but not this one.
Okay.
Not this read. Okay. So once we read, what we actually mean by reading the text is showing you the text, which is everything which is in that file. That's what we mean by reading. Not like reading out for you aloud, like that. So basically, file object then dot read is going to try to read everything which is the text file as much as it can until it reaches the end of the file. Okay, then now that you're happy, you've read, looked at everything, you can close the file. Say file object dot close. Okay, so there it is. We read the text with file object dot read. Then after reading, since that's the only purpose for which you wanted to open the file, you close the file. Again, you do not leave. When you open a file, you have to make sure that you close it at the end of the day. Okay, so that is how you read the whole file. Most likely that's what you would want to do. That's what makes more sense. However, you can also want to read your file in bits. If you want to read your file in bits, then when you say file object dot read, you could also optionally give the read method how many bytes you want to read from the file. So this is an option thing. You can give the read method an option. As you say read, you can also say, oh, I want to read this many bytes from the file. Okay? So again, we try to do that. So we open the file. So open, then we say file. Yeah, file. The file we're opening. Then mode, the purpose for which you're opening it. You're opening it for reading. Then here, we try to do the same. We try to read the file, but you only want to read the first 35 bytes. Okay? Without this number here, you can see that read showed us everything which is in the file. Okay? With that number 35, which is the number of bytes, it's going to show us only a small amount of the file. This. Baba, brown sheep, have you any? That's the only thing it shows. Okay? Then after that, if that's what you wanted to do, you only wanted to read a part of the file, then you close the file. You cannot change the purpose of you opening the file halfway in the middle without closing the file. Are we clear?
Yes.
It's like you're going to the shop, you're going to say you're going to buy bread. Then while in the shop there, you also decide to buy milk and these other things. You can't do that. If you go there, you go and buy bread, then if you need to do something else, you bring the bread back home, then you go back and buy whatever other things. You can't just keep on adding things like the way we do things here. That confuses. Is that clear? So you can open a file for one specific thing. If you want to open the file for reading, you just open the file for reading. If you want to open the file for reading and writing, those are two purposes they're saying. You have to specify at the beginning, I'm going for this and this. Okay. So that is how you read the whole file, text file, and that is also how you read part of the text file. You can also open the file for reading, but this time around, you want to read a single line at a time. You want to read one line at a time, because when we said read, it gave you all these lines of text, all of them. But if you want to read one line at a time, you can also do that. Or if you want to read multiple lines at a time, you can also do that. Okay? So, again, we open our file, since we closed it. No, we haven't closed it yet, so we need to close it. Okay. Now, the purpose is we want to open our file for reading, but you want to read one line at a time. Okay, so say file, then mode. So for you to read a file, for you to read from a file one line at a time, you use a method called readLine. You use this guy called readLine. This readLine is going to allow you to read one line at a time until the file comes to an end. So you keep on calling this readLine with file object one at a time, then you keep until the file comes to an end. So for example, here we want to read the first line. So say file name, so print, inside the print function, we'll say file object, then readLine. So this is just going to show us the first line of the file. There. Baba, brown sheep. That's the first line. If we want the next line, again we say file object readLine, then have you any. These file objects readLine, you can put them in one cell like this. So we want, now here, we want the next two lines. So we say file object readLine, then another file object readLine. So this is going to get two lines from the file. Yes sir, 3 bags full. If you want the next 4 lines, so you say file object readLine, file object readLine, file object readLine, file object readLine, like that. So you get your next 4 lines. One for the master, one for the den, one for the old man who lives down the lane. Is this clear? How you read a line at a time from a file?
Yes.
Because the purpose was to read a line of the file at a time. Once you're okay, you've read enough, you have got an idea of what information is there, you close the file. You say file object.close. Very, very important that you always remember to close your file. Okay, so you close it. You can also achieve the same results of reading line by line by using a for loop. Okay, so you say file object here, so you can use a for loop, then file, the name of the file, then the purpose for which the file is being opened, then this one here. So we create a file object. Now this file object, remember, it represents the file, and this file is made up of lines. Okay, like we saw here, this file object has these lines. Okay, so basically it's a list. It's kind of like a list which contains lines. Are we clear? So you can access one line at a time using a for loop. You can say for line in file objects. So every time the for loop runs, it's going to, from this file object, a line will be picked, then it will be stored in this line, then it will get printed out here. Then after all the lines have been printed, you can close your file. So you can do that here. So here you've opened the file, then you print the lines one by one using this for loop. It's like how you print numbers in a list, but this is a list which contains lines of text. So you pick one line, you print it, you pick one line from the file object, the first line from the file object. So this first line is picked, then it is stored in this line, then you print it, you print the line, then the next line is picked, this next line from the file object, it is stored in line, then you print it, then the next line is picked from the file object, it is stored in line, then you print it. That's how it works until all the lines have been printed, then you close. In this case, the lines were being printed one at a time using a for loop. Are we clear?
Yes.
You can also decide, say, okay, fine, maybe printing one line at a time is not so efficient. You want to have access to more than one line at a time. You want to print multiple lines. If you want to print multiple lines, then you should use this read lines method. Okay, so you're opening the file with the intention of reading multiple lines. So you say name of the file. So here we open, so file, then mod. So you open your file object, that, then you say file object read lines. When you do that, this is what you get. You see why we're saying that this file object is actually a list. Look at this, square bracket there, then square bracket there. That is a list. Then everything inside here has got a quotation mark. So this is a string. It's a string. So each sentence, each line is being treated as a string. Then the whole collective is being treated as a list. So everything in the file, get everything in the file, you store it as a list. And that's what you can see from the read lines here. Are we clear? Then you close the file. You close the file like that. You could also do the same thing. Here we open the file. I want to do a print and see what happens. Just a minute. Okay, so there we open the file, but here instead of just reading, I want us to print. print file object dot read lines. Print file object read lines. So when you do that, this is what you get. So it looks, this one is a bit more vertical. Then you make a print, you can see it looks like that. Because we opened it, of course it's important that we also close. Okay, now what you see here is that with read lines, whether through this read lines we used here, say file object read lines, what you see is that what you get is a list. You see this? It starts with a square bracket, it ends with a square bracket. What you get is a list here. It starts with a square bracket, you end with a square bracket. Are we clear?
Yes.
What you get is a list. So the fact that read lines gives you a list of sentences, of lines which make up your file, you can use that fact with your knowledge of a for loop to run through this file using a for loop by using read lines. And that's what you're going to do next here. So we say file object, we open the file. So file, then the mod, we're opening the file for. Then here, this file object read lines. This file object read lines gives us a list. This list, which we printed here. In this other case, we didn't print it. But you remember about a list? You can store a list in a variable. Do you remember that? When you're talking about lists and storing them in the variable so that it's easier for us to handle?
Yes.
Yes, so we do the same thing here. So that's what we're doing here. So we know this bits, file object read lines, is going to give us a list, this list. Because it's going to give us a list, we get this list, then we store it in a variable called lines here. Okay, we store it in a variable called lines. I think maybe we should do things a bit like this, so that we see exactly how the whole thing comes together. So where is that? Okay, this one. So I think that would be better, so we see exactly how things is. Then open. Okay, so open. Okay, then after we open, that thing has been opened. Then we want to store the contents of file object as a list lines. Using read lines method. So let's see. So lines. So say lines, then file object dot read lines. There. So we've got read lines. Then we can print this read lines and see what it has, what it is, and what it has. So you can say print variable lines, print lines. So we say print lines. If you print lines, this is what you see with lines. So what I'm trying to show here is that this bit, the file object read lines, gives us a list. And this list we can store it in a variable. Then after that, we can manipulate this list. We know how to do lists. For example, if you want to find out how many lines are in the list, we know how to do that. Everything to do with list, we know how to do. Everything can do with the list, you can do here. If you want to replace a line, you can replace a line. If you want to do stuff, you can do things. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes.
So with these lines, which is what we have here, you can do a for loop with these lines. You can do a for loop. So print the contents of lines in for loop. Of these lines. So you can say for line in lines. That's how you do a for loop. Then you say print line. When you do that, there are our lines. So this for loop prints every line one at a time until all the lines are done. Then after that, since we wanted to print all the lines one at a time, we wanted to read all of them at once, then print them one at a time. Of course, the last bit of business is to close the file. This you should not forget how to do. You should not forget to close the purpose for which the file was opened. So that's going to be file object close. There. Okay. Is that clear?
It is.
Yeah. So that's how you can read multiple lines from a thing. You can put the whole thing together like this. You're opening the file, then the list, you create a list from, you get the list, the list you get from here, you store it in there, then you do a loop, then you close the file. If you do that at once, that's the result. Okay, so we have seen how to read the files. We have seen how to read a file, an entire file using read. We have seen how to read a file, part of it using read and the count of bytes. We have seen how to read a single line, how to read the file line by line. Okay, we have also seen how to read files multiple lines by using the read lines. Okay, the other thing you would want to do with the file is you want to write things to a file. Okay, now there are two ways to write things to a file. If the file is already there, if this file exists, okay, and this file has got things to it, if you say write, if you say you're opening the file for the purpose of writing, if you say write, what write is going to do is that with the write mode, when you're opening a file for the purpose of writing, what it's going to do is that it is going to delete everything in that file and it will replace it with the new things you want to write. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yes.
There is also another way you can write to a file, that is by appending the A. When you append the things which are already in that file, if that file exists, the things which are already in that file will not be deleted, but instead the things which you are going to write will be added at the end of the file. Is that clear? The things will be added at the end of the file. So again, we open our same file, the black sheep file. Now this time we want to write to it. So file, we want to open. Now the purpose for which we want to open it, we want to write to it. Meaning that we're going to delete whatever is there, then we will write things. Okay. Now I want you to see previously how many things were in the file, how many lines were in this. If we could only we did not count, but we can somewhere we can make it count. Let's open. We see how many lines were there. So let's do an open, read lines, then print lines. Then let's open how many lines. Let's count how many lines. Length. Then how many lines are there? So this one is going to give us a number of lines which are in our black sheep text. So get the number of lines of text. So that's what it's going to give us. So there are 24 lines, you see? Here. 24 items here, there are 24 lines. Then of course we close it. So we know how many lines are in our file. There are 24. What we want to do is now, when we do this, when we write, okay, when we write to our existing black sheep, what is there is going to be deleted. We know there are 24 lines. So when we do that ourselves now with write, everything is going to be deleted, and you're going to add 8 lines. These 8 lines. Okay? Then after that, we're going to check how many lines you have added. We're going to do before we do it, we'll do a read. Then we'll close it, then do a read to see whether these lines were actually successfully added to them. So, the name of the file, then the purpose for which you are writing. Remember, when you write to a file, whatever is there will get deleted, then it will get replaced by the new things you add. So how do we do that? How do we write stuff? So here we open, we tell Python we want to write. A file object is created. You write using a method called write. There's a method called write here. So you say file object, then write. Then inside this method write, this is the first line you want to write. Okay, this \n is for entering. It's the same as pressing the enter key so that you start a new line. Okay, then next, this is the second line we want to write. Have you any? Then yes sir. Then 3 bags full, 1 for the master, 1 for the dame, 1 for the old man who lives. So these are 8 lines. These are the lines we want to write. So this is how you write lines of text to your file. Then after that, we close our file because the purpose was writing. Okay? Then after writing, we can check, we can open our file and read it, like in this case. So here, we open our file, we open it, then the purpose, we want to read it. Then how do you want to read it? I'll say file objects read lines. Then the read lines is going to be lines so that we can check how many lines we have. Okay, then print lines. So we're going to say for line in lines, say print line print lines in file. Then you also want to get how many lines have been added. So get the number of lines. So say print, say the file has, so the file has length lines, then that one lines, then you close. So this is going to tell us how many lines are in that file. So we run it. So when you run it, it opens the file for reading purposes. Then using these read lines, we put them there. Then you print the lines one at a time. Then at the end, you are told the file has got 8 lines. Previously, the file had 24 lines. Here. Okay. Now, because we have written to that same file, whatever was there has been deleted, then has been replaced with this new text of 8 lines. Is it clear what has happened here?
Yes.
Yeah. So that is what happens when you write to a file. Whatever is there is going to be deleted and is going to be replaced by new stuff. However, if you do not want to delete things, you want to go and write at the end of the file, then that's where you have to append. So that's what we do here. Say file name, then the mode, the purpose for which you're opening the file is to append. We are opening for appending. There. So this file already exists. This file has got things in it. Now these things, when you append, you're still writing, okay? Because we use write. We are still writing, but whatever is there will not be deleted. Okay, it will just be added at the end. So we append 8 more lines. Then we close the file. Okay, then after that we want now to read our lines. This one. So we say copy, paste. How many lines do we have now? Where is that? Down. Close. Down. Yeah, here. How many more lines do we have? I will delete this one, because this one also tells us how many lines we have now. So when you run this one now, it tells us, it reads all the lines, and now it tells us the file has got 16 lines. So in this case, the 8 lines which were in the black sheep text were not deleted. They stayed, and 8 more lines were added to it. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. If you do the same exercise again, file, mode, you want to append like that, then you write 8 more lines to it. So this time around, then you close the file, we expect to have 24 lines. So I will delete this because that one doesn't tell me how many lines I have. So now if I get this, copy paste, okay. If I run this now, I expect 24 lines. So it runs that thing, runs. Now we have 24 lines. So that is how you write to a file by adding things at the end instead of deleting every time you open the file to write, instead of deleting everything. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So far, we have been working with a file which exists. Okay? So far, we have been working with a file which exists. So we haven't learned how to create a new text file from scratch. I'm trying to see something here. That one. So I was deleting something because if you want to create a text file from scratch, if you tell Python to create a text file from scratch, it will have to check if that file is there or not. Are we clear? So what you're going to do next is you're going to create a new text file from scratch. After you create this text file, when you create this file, it will not have anything in it. So the process is actually you create a new file, then you open this new file, okay, then you read it. If there's nothing, then you write things to it and stuff like that. Are we clear? So if you want to create a file, if you want to open a file for creating, you have a name of a file, but that file is not on the computer, like in this one, this twinkle.txt. Again, another necessary thing I picked. Twinkle, little star, how bright you are, stuff like that kind of business. So another necessary thing I picked. The point is, how do we create a file? Okay, so that's the name of the file. It's not there. When you are trying to open a file which is not on the computer, so this is the name of the file. The mod in which you open the file is going to be X. This X. So the mod is going to be X. It's not R, it's not W, it's not A, but you're going to use a mod X. That is for creating a file. So we do that. So there, it has been created. The next, so that bit has created a file. Okay, this bit creates a file. Next, we want to open this file, Twinkle, for reading. But clearly it doesn't have anything in it. So we shouldn't expect to find anything. When you try to open it for reading, we should not expect to find anything. So we say file, name of the file, it's twinkle.txt. Then we want to open it for reading. Okay, then we try to read. As you can see, there's nothing which has been shown there because we just created it. There's nothing there. Then we close the file. Okay, so now that there's nothing, we're sure that this file is empty. We now try to open it with the purpose of writing stuff to read. So the name of the file, mod, now we want to write to it. So we open it to that purpose. And we write this. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, up and above the world, so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. Basically, again, as I've said, I picked two college things, two necessary texts to show so that we don't worry about a lot of things. We just want, our focus is on how do you create a file, how do you read a file, how do you write to a file. That's what we want to do. So if we can succeed, then we can also do the same stuff with everything else. Then after that, that's what you have written. Then we close. Okay, we close the file. Then again, now want to see if the things we have written to this twinkle business has actually been written successfully. Then we read now the whole text, and here it is. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are, then blah, 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 stuff like that. So we have actually succeeded in creating a new text file. So we create using X. Then after that, if you open using, for the purpose of reading. So if you want to create a file, you say open, the name of the file, then the mod, and you put X. That is for creating a text file. Is that clear?
Yes.
Everything else is what you've looked at. How do you read the file? How do you open a file for reading? How do you open a file for writing? And how do you write a file? Everything else is what you've looked at. The same. Okay. So this looks like, yeah, like you were typing something, some story. That's fun. Okay. Now, one of the most useful forms of text files which we use in computer programming is something called a CSV, comma separated values. These are text files in which the things in your file are separated by values. Okay? The stuff in your files are separated by values. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to create such a file. Let me see if it's there already. Nobel laureates. If it's there, I need to delete it. So again. Nobel N where is M? Okay, here it is. So I need to delete it because I'm trying to create something. So that's the name of the file. Now the other thing with when you create a file with X, that file, you're just creating a file, but it's empty. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah, you're creating a file, but it's empty with the mod X. However, if you open a file, then the name of that file doesn't exist. Like in this case, we have just deleted the nobelaureates.csv. But we want to write, we want to open a file, then we want to write to it like this. Then in this case, if the file does not exist, Python is going to create that file immediately. Are we clear? So here,
Yes.
yeah, so Python is going to create that file immediately. But of course, you could create it first. Then after you create it, then you can open it. But you can do the creating and opening at the same time by just opening the file for reading. So if the file is not there, then Python is going to create a file with the same name. Then that file will be opened for reading purposes. As you can see, it should not protest. So there, it doesn't protest even if this file was not there. So it's going to create it. And if we check, here it is. Remember, I was just from deleting it. There it is. It has been created. But it doesn't have anything at the moment. Okay, so we write things to this file. Now the things we want to write, the values are separated by commas. We write. This is the name of the person who won the Nobel Prize. That's the name of the person. Then we put a comma, this comma, the year for which they won the Nobel Prize, then comma, the nationality of the person. So this is basically a list of the names of people, when they lived, which years, I think the years in which they lived, and the countries where they came from. Okay? So this is quite a list, a lot of them like that. And at the end of the day, you write things. So that's how you create your comma separated things. Then after that, you close the file. Then you can read everything. So you can say file. Then the reason why we are opening this file, want to read it, so we can read it. Here it is. There. Now, so this is what is called a CSV. The values are separated by commas. When you open this CSV in a spreadsheet application, when you open like the way this one is, if I open this in a spreadsheet application, it's going to open like it's an Excel sheet. I will show you when it opens. So that's what's called. Basically, your other information which can be put in Excel can actually be stored as texts using a format called CSV. So here I choose what is a separator. The separator is a comma, so it's going to know. And if it's a comma, then this is how the information is going to be shown here, like this. Then I say okay. Then you see column A has got only the names of the people who won the Nobel Prize. Column B has got the years in which they lived, their lifetimes. Column C has got their nationalities. So if you want to store information like this, information which is in the form of a spreadsheet, because most of the information also in this world is in the form of spreadsheets. And sometimes you want to access these spreadsheets so that you can do things with these spreadsheets. You can store that information as a CSV. Are we clear?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how you would do that bit. That's how you would carry out such a task. You can create a CSV from a list. For example, here we've got a list of cars, car brands, and the countries where those car brands come from. For example, BMW comes from Germany, Audi comes from Germany, Toyota comes from Japan, Subaru comes from Japan. So basically, you've got a list of cars and their countries of origin. So you print cars, that's a list of cars and the countries of origin of those cars. Then I want to create a list, a file, which contains the car brand and the corresponding country of origin. And I'm going to call this list, this file, cars.csv. Are we clear? I'll check if this thing exists, cars. If it's there, then I should delete it. There it's there, so I delete it. So I create that file name. Then I check if the length of cars and the length of country are the same. It says true. Then I get the length. Okay, fine. Let me get the length of one of the lists. Okay. Then I open this cars file. Then the reason why I'm opening it is because I want to write to it. Okay. Then I do this. This is some kind of a for, then item, then range. So I'm creating a range object using this. Before I do that, why did we do this? Because we want to create a range object. And how does a range object, if you can remind ourselves, look like? So we say range list size. So this list size is going to create a range from 0 to 10. But if you get that, then you say list that gives you a list of numbers. So basically, this is how many items we have. We've got 12 items like that. So we're going to use this in a for loop like this. So for each number, then we run this. So what we want to do is we want to find out how many lines, how many times we need to do this. This is why we did this. So this is 12 times because we've got 12 items. Each list has got 12 items. So we want to run this thing 12 times. Okay? Then we want to write the car. From cars, we get the item. The item is going to be this number. That's going to be the index. So this is going to give, these are the indices. It's going to give us access to a specific item from the cars list and the countries. So we get the first item from both lists. So here, for cars item, then plus separated by a comma, then country item, like that. So when you do that, that's going to run. Then we close it. Then we open this file. Then the mod. Then we run this. This is what we get. So we get BMW, Germany, Audi, Germany, Toyota, Japan, Subaru, Japan, Mazda, Japan, Jeep, USA, Mercedes, Germany, Fiat, Italy, Kia, Korea, Indra, India, Ford, USA, BYD, China. So we get information like this. Again, you can open these same cars.csv. You can open it in your Excel spreadsheet, in your Excel application. When you open it, this is what you see. Your information is stored in the form, the way you would store your information in a spreadsheet, like this. So you could come up with this from your lists. So it's very helpful if you start looking at information. This column, you look at it as a list. This column, you look at it as a list. And then if you do that, then quickly you get linked to the things you've been doing with Python. Are we clear?
Yes.
You can also get the position where you are in a file by using the seek method and also the tell. If you want to change the position or you want to find out where you are, you can do that. But usually people don't do that most of the time. But anyway, just going to look at it. So we have got our file twinkle.txt. Then we open it. File. Then the reason why you're opening the twinkle, the mod. Then, yeah, we read the first 10 bytes. We store that as a text. Then you can read the text. You can get the position where after you finish reading this, where the pointer is. So you say file object.tell, that's the position. So that's how you get the position using this tell. I think it was there at the beginning. Tell, here it is. Tell. So that gives you the position where you're in the file, where you currently are at that particular moment. So if you get the position, then you print the position at the 10th position. Then this seek takes you it's like your mouse. You take it to the beginning of the file. Say 600. So it takes it to the beginning of the file, like that. Then you read 50 bytes. Then the text. Yeah. Then of course you can close the file. Any questions? We have come to the end when it comes to the first part. How to handle text files. Are there any questions?
No.
Okay.
No.
The next question I'm going to ask is, after a short break, are you willing to come for another 1 hour? From 17 to 18? So that we can look at the other topic. It should not be very long. Yeah, we want to make progress. We want to make progress.
Yes, it's okay. I think I can charge my phone within 20 minutes. It will do something.
Okay. Then let's log back on at 17 hours.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's see you at 17 hours.
All right.
Yeah.